Good morning. Today I'm joined by Andrew Payne, and our podcast is all about navigating fatherhood. Good morning, Andrew. How are you today?
Morning. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. The sun is shining. It's bank holiday weekend. Is it bank
Oh,
holiday? It is, isn't it? Yeah.
it
So I'm feeling
certainly
pretty
is.
good. Yeah.
Is yeah, and that sunshine makes all the difference to our mental well-being and health, which is quite apt for our podcast today, Andrew.
It absolutely does. Although if we get a little bit too hot, I find then I tip into whinging. Oh, it's too hot. I can't. So it's a fine line.
We all like that little bit of moaning about the weather, whichever way it goes.
Yeah.
So, on to our podcast today. Very excited about this because, I think it's a real important subject for us to be looking at. So, I'm going to start my questions now. So, as a working dad, what are some of the biggest challenges you face today? How do these impact your work and your well-being?
Yeah. Do you know, one of the biggest challenges is almost something we should celebrate. And I don't believe we should turn the clock back. I'm a very modern man, but it is a challenge in that when I grew up, I'm 52 now. Generally, there was a parent at home. It was usually mum, but I suppose it didn't have to be, but whose job it was pretty much to be the homemaker and do all the stuff that happens at home. And then the person that goes out to work, they sort of do that and they come in and pat the children on the head on the way to bed. I suppose now my biggest challenge is that me and my wife both work, as do most of our friends and most parents, whether they are still together or whether they've split, that they will both be working. And we find, both of us, that juggling home stuff and our work is really difficult. That
Yeah.
there's nobody whose sole job it is to make sure all the kids now in their wardrobes have the correct fitting clothes and the socks with holes have gone. From that to the shopping to the cleaning to the dog. And I think that's one of the hardest things we find. We've both got our heads full of work. We're both in demanding jobs. So it's difficult. We always feel worn out. And I think that exhaustion, and I talk about burnout in my wider work. So you'd have thought, well, surely I would never be at risk of burnout. Well, that just simply isn't the case. We live in a fast paced, complicated society. And I think that is a challenge for people. It's a challenge for mums, it's a challenge for dads. I also think for us, what we found, my daughters from my former marriage came to live with us. It's a long and sorry story. So my wife is also a stepmom, but we found with the girls when they were younger, they were much easier to parent, not as teens, I hasten to add, but as younger
Yeah, I
children.
agree with that.
If you could just if you couldn't get them out in the morning, just give them some craft work to do and they'll be happy enough to. The boys, we got three boys, 12, 10, 7. I mean, they would literally kill each other with the house turned upside down if they're not out by 9, 10 o'clock. So I think what's helped us with that challenge, the levels of energy that they
Yeah.
have, is that we just recognize that we can't expect the same stuff from them. So we still parent with the same principles, but my daughters could sit down to the table and use cutlery. If any of my boys have used cutlery, I see that as a major parenting achievement for that day. And it's not to say we should parent with different principles, but we should understand maybe there's nurture and nature at
Nature.
play here. It's both things, I think, that there is social conditioning, there has to be. But I do see, my daughters never ask for weapons from Santa on Santa's wish list. Every year, my boys just want weapons. If we don't give them weapons, they'll just make weapons out of what they got. Where does that come from?
Yeah.
They don't watch anything violent. I'm not violent. So I think challenges of parenting both genders and challenges where both parents work, I think that is difficult. And it is a good thing. My wife has a career. It's wonderful. We should celebrate that. But there are some challenges with that I
Yeah.
think we shouldn't be afraid to talk about.
I agree. And for me, you're describing like feeling sometimes a bit overwhelmed, out of your depth, things like that. And of course, at risk of burnout. So how would you know if you was on the road to burnout? How can you spot those signs early enough so we can reach out to people who we work with or maybe who we live with who look like they're going to be reaching that burnout before I suppose before they do, so you can put those, put some things in place, I suppose.
I think there's two things we can do here. I might get into trouble for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. we should recognize that the official World Health Organization definition for burnout is not fit for purpose. It says it's chronic workplace stress that hasn't been well managed. Whereas what I would say is the triggers for burnout can be varied. They can be home-based and work-based. It says nothing about the gradual build-up. Burnout doesn't just happen overnight. You're not tickety-boo today. Tomorrow you have a stinker of a day, so I'm burnt out by Wednesday. That's not what burnout is. Yeah. It's a gradual build-up of chronic stress over a period of time, and then you are utterly exhausted and overwhelmed. And I think within our own organizations, we could do our own definitions of burnout. I don't think that's unhealthy. I think that's fine to do that. But the second thing I think we should do is Karen, you could go to Google and say, what are the symptoms of burnout? And you'll get this whole list of generic symptoms and different burnout models where, like, there's 8 stages of burnout, but stage 6 and 7, the symptoms are the same. So how would I know which stage I'm in? Yeah. What I would say, by all means, go to Google and ask ChatGPT, but what are your own unique red flags that you wouldn't get in a Google search? So for me, for example, I have about a dozen. I won't share them all. We don't have time for that, but I'll share just 2.
Yeah.
My hands, the state of my nails. I get very embarrassed about it. I'm a public speaker that's what I do for a job. So I can't turn up to an event with fingers covered in blood because I've bitten them down. That would look terrible. But when I move into a place of chronic stress, that's where it shows up for me. Maybe not for you. If you were working with me, you might spot it. And I would say within our workplaces, let's talk about our own unique burnout red flags. And with that one, I would give you permission to compassionately ask me how I am and refer to my nails, but I probably wouldn't do banter on my nails very well because I'm very embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
What I would do banter on is I get stress dreams, and I only get them when I'm moving and my nails are beginning to be a state. And there's 2 dreams. One is I'm a stand-up comedian, because I do public speaking. I guess and I'm going to be doing some stand-up comedy next year because I see myself on stage and then I can't think of anything to say and there's an awkward silence and then I wake up really stressed. And the second stress dream I have is that back at university, I peel over the paper to do my final exam and nothing on it is what I've revised. And then I wake up in panic. And those 2 dreams, I only get them when I'm stressed. But I could chat to you could say about the nails and compassionately check in with me, know that I'm embarrassed about it. And then you can say, what about, are you getting any stress dreams at the moment? I'll say, yes. And you would know with those, you can have a laugh with me about it. So in the short answer, understand your unique red flags. Know what your colleagues' unique burnout red flags are. Know which ones you can have banter on and which ones you should still check in with them, but tread more sensitively. And that for me is one of the best things you can do to catch burnout early.
Yeah, and I think that sounds fantastic. And I think you're absolutely right. We are all different people. So recognizing your team's burnout and probably the people you live with as well. It's not just about, recognizing who you're working with. It's as important to know what's going on at home, isn't it? No, that's fantastic. Now, I know you've done a book called Honestly Man, and I know we'll refer to that again later in the podcast. And you talk about a certain group of dads who are particularly at risk when we think about well-being and mental health. Can you tell us more about those groups, who they are and what their risks are?
Yeah, I'll tell you about 2 of the groups I mention in the books that I have a big heart for. One is and we can look at this more broadly as parents. So for the mums listening to this, women that go through this, also, we need to support them and really pay extra attention to their well-being. So for the purpose of my book, it's dads. For the purpose of the podcast, people, it is those that don't live with their children anymore because there's been a relationship breakdown and there are issues with the ex, or they're treading carefully to secure contact. It's not always the dad, although often in terms of child contact, it is often the dad. And those stuck in the family courts. So I had years in the family courts following an abusive and violent marriage, and then the inevitable issues with contact with the kids. And I would say to any employer that if you have someone, mum or dad, involved in family court action, the impact on their working life is probably similar to a serious illness at that stage. Yeah. It's so unpredictable. The stakes couldn't be higher. It's so incredibly stressful. It could cost them 10 grand to go through that process. It could cost them 100 grand. That is not unusual. So they will need to hold their job down, but that will be on them all day. And to the point where CAFCAS, the independent organization that advised the judges on what they should do, because judges don't get a lot of time per case, they may call your employee. Your employee may say, well, look, it's a 20-minute phone call. It might be 2 hours.
Yeah.
They can't just get off the phone to the CAFCAS person. And likewise, if they go to court, the hearing might be for 10:30. It's a half an hour hearing. It's a stone's throw from their offices. Oh, I'll book a half day. I'll be back by lunchtime. They won't be back by lunchtime.
No.
It probably won't get heard till 3 o'clock. They might be in there an hour. They might be in there 30 seconds because they're missing a piece of paper. So that's another £1,000 outing with barrister in tow and so on and so forth. So parents, dads going through family court action, as organizations, do you have in your employee assistance program legal support? Or if you don't, are people aware of how awful that is? And in that season, your employee is going to need a lot of extra support, and the quality of work they deliver will not be to the same standard, even though they're trying their best. So that's one group. Second group is new dads. Because the paternity leave in the UK is absolutely rubbish. You compare it. I mean, I couldn't hold my stuff together. I used to feel so guilty. I wish I could be a better person. But I reckon if I had Sweden's paternity leave allowance, I'd have done a lot better at holding my stuff together. So I think new dads, that is an issue for family units. That the paternity leave is so rubbish. 2 weeks at sort of statutory pay. I mean, you take a massive hit. No one's going to then say, oh, I'll just take 6 weeks off to support you. In the UK, it needs a complete rethink.
Yeah.
But also we know that dads suffer with postnatal depression, but at a different time, most generally for women. So in the 3 to 6 month period after the infant is born is apparently when fathers are more likely to suffer from postnatal depression. So if you have a new father as an organization, the check-ins you should do with that dad, because men struggle with postnatal depression in similar numbers looking at the data,
Really?
which surprised me. But it's at that
too.
3 to 6 month period. So it's just being aware of this stuff, looking out for it, maybe saying, actually, in our policies, we'll just have a couple of compassionate check-ins, make sure he's doing okay, because actually it's an upheaval for everyone. So those are the two groups of dads. There are a couple of other groups I mentioned in the book, but those are the two I'm mentioning today.
And I think, it's a very overwhelming feeling bringing a new baby home anyhow, isn't it? You know, for mum and dad, nobody can prepare you for that, especially the first baby. I don't think anybody can prepare you for being a new dad or a new mum, because, you're almost straight away, you've got this little human being who you're responsible for now, and it changes your life. And even though when you're due to have your first baby, we all go, this baby's not going to change our lives. It absolutely does, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think as dads today, most men do want to bond with their child. Most decent men want to support their female partner in whichever way she wants to be supported. If she wants to stay at home with the baby for a year, they want to provide. If she wants to go back to work, they still want to provide. And so we want to provide, we want to do all these things and be all these things. And it is overwhelming for both parents. But I think this notion that dads sort of are quickly back on business trips to Milan in 5-star hotels and most dads are not in that situation.
Of course. So that probably leads me quite nicely onto my next question. So do you think dads face certain barriers in easily reaching out for help at work if they need it?
I think some things have changed. I do think there's a better awareness around mental health. I sometimes think of the Paul Gascoigne story back in the World Cup 1990. England get knocked out. Paul Gascoigne cried. He was our best player at the tournament. It was national headlines. Walker's Crisps created an advert out of his tears. Today, if a male sports star cries, no one thinks anything of it. That said, I still feel like most blokes have a bit of a personal man code where a good man sort of grits, he doesn't quit, he gets on with it, he doesn't make a burden of himself on other people. A good man rescues damsels in distress, he's a knight in shining armor, he can do it all. If he's got any weakness at all, he certainly isn't going to reveal that. And professionally, he's not going to reveal he's struggling, because that might impact his promotion, which might impact his ability to provide. So I do think working to create a better man code, one that's fit for the 21st century, is where we need to go with that. And so I think some of what holds men back from asking for support is man code. There is also research I show in the book where, because we have elevated levels of testosterone in our systems in comparison with equivalent age women, we know that testosterone is a status regulation hormone that makes it harder for men to reach out initially. So you've got the man code, you've got elevated levels of testosterone. So it's a slightly biological thing as well
Yeah.
that makes it tricky. And the more that we can make it normal, the more that senior leadership, people, males, women, men, people, can reveal where they're struggling and take the lead on that and send that signal that it is okay to talk about this stuff, the more progress we'll make.
Perfect. So if you could pull together just a few tips to encourage the dads and mums out there, because I think that's, you've said that yourself, I think that's is important in this podcast. When it comes to juggling parenting and working life, which we all know is so difficult to do, I've done it. My children are grown up now, but I remember the struggle when I was doing it. What would you suggest? How can people get that real parenting work-life balance?
I think there's two tips, and then there's just a broader thing to bear in mind that I'll share as succinctly as I can. Um, we need to try to find a time to connect with our children, understanding that we've got time is really tight for us because most of us are working, and we need to understand that that time to connect will change as the child grows up, and you need to stay on top of where it's going. So with all three boys, until about last year, it was just before bed because they like to delay going to bed. That's when they want to chat. So I do sort of 10 minutes with each one, unpicking the day. How are you feeling out of 10? 10's brilliant, naught's awful, five's mediocre. And we'd unpick the scores, and it worked beautifully for about a year, but it's changing now. So my middle one, he likes to connect. So we've got a long kitchen. He plays football, and we do a lot of ball work and ball mastery in the kitchen together. That's what he wants. He doesn't want to talk to me now at bedtime. He wants to read. But when we're doing ball work together, that's now where we talk, we connect. So that's the time I've got to protect. It's changed. I need to stay on top of that. My older one, I'm still finding the connection time because it's changing for him too. The younger one, it still works. So find a time where you can connect, protect that time fiercely, but understand that as your children get older, it will evolve and change. But
Yeah.
you must keep on top of a time to connect with each child without putting yourself under absurd pressure. That's the first thing I would say. Second thing that I've realized now, and this is the same for my girls and my boys. So the best example I can give, we went to Madeira last year. We spent a fortune, all inclusive, top hotel. The boys did not care at all about the hotel, the luxuries. All they wanted to do was find places in Madeira where they could jump off from as high as possible into the sea. Because they're like me, they like to jump off stuff, high stuff. So, and what they came back with was the adventures. And so I think sometimes we put ourselves under pressure. We've got to spend this, we've got to spend that, we've got to provide this.
Yeah.
Actually, your children, they need to connect with you, as per my first tip, and some adventures. Where can you have adventures? You don't need to go to Madeira for it, although I recommend it as a holiday destination. But for me, I'm really on top of that. When I'm in the UK, where can we have little adventures? Because that means more to them than actually anything. They could have gone to a much cheaper basic hotel as long as we were jumping off stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's the other adventures and connection time. And then just as a warning to parents, I know this from my daughters turning into teens, and I know this from the neuroscience now around kids when they turn into teens. They have a more sensitive amygdala that constantly scans for threat. So, of course, when you ask a perfectly reasonable request, please could you help me unload the dishwasher because I'm a working parent, of course they're going to fly off the handle. It's not their fault. They're not a rotten teen. It's brain development. Their resting dopamine levels are lower as teens than at any other time in their life. So, of course, they're going to feel dissatisfied. They won't care less about everything that you do for them. Of course, they're going to be riskier and do completely ridiculous things.
Yeah.
And their frontal cortex, for logical long-term thinking, it's not developed, and it doesn't until they're in their 20s. So what you get as a teen can be a bit of a nightmare, but your teen is not inherently rotten, and you are not a bad parent, but it is teen brain development. And what was Mother Nature thinking when Mother Nature set it up that way is beyond me. I normally say Mother Nature knows best, but not on this one, is what I would say.
Yeah, and I think, you're absolutely right. Anybody who's navigated through teenage years, especially with girls that are totally different than boys. I had a girl and I had a boy, and the boy was far easier through teenage years. But I think we all put very high expectations of ourselves, don't we, to be the best we can be and what we think is the best for that child. And sometimes, it's not always the case, is it? It doesn't come with a manual. I think it actually should come with a manual, being a parent, but it actually doesn't. So there you go. Maybe that could be your next book. Write a manual parenting book.
Love
and
that.
that does bring me to my final question, you'll be glad to know, and it is about your book. I'm really intrigued about it, and I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast will be it will want to read it. So what's it about, and what was the goal of it when you set out doing this book?
I will answer that question, but you may have picked up, and the listeners may do too, that I've strictly told my boys, they're in the kitchen, keep Ruby the dog in, don't let her out because I'm recording, because they've got an inset day at school today.
Oh, wow, okay.
And of course, they've let her out, and the Amazon man's delivered. He is a man because I can see him. He's delivered a parcel, and she's going bonkers. So if you hear barking, these are just the joys of working from home with children.
We actually can't hear anything, Andrew. You'll be glad to know.
Wonderful. I've obviously got a really good mic then. So yeah, the book, there's a purpose. Yeah, definitely. So the book answers 3 key questions. Are men struggling? Why are men struggling? And how do we help? I wanted to write a book that was easy to read, that's written as if I'm chatting to my mates in the pub, but which draws on global research, lived experience, the voices from my podcast, and really answers those questions in a well-researched, balanced, easy to read way, because I think there's a lot of nonsense out there. There's a lot of negativity about men in the press. We read the manosphere, adolescence. It can create a knee-jerk reaction. So I wanted a more balanced piece that really comes at this question compassionately. And there is a side to me as well. Part of the issue is that men's issues are not exactly a funding magnet. So all profits from the book will be invested towards men and boys charities, because a book about the issues, for me, one of the issues is cash. So it should raise cash. Well, why would I be taking the cash from that book? That doesn't seem fitting. So the purpose of the book is to create that resource, and it's to raise money.
That's amazing. It's absolutely fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Andrew. I think it's been a brilliant podcast. I think the viewers listening to it will really enjoy it. And it's just been absolutely great. And it's been great to chat with you, with like-minded people who you think, when you see somebody stood up there who does do professional speaking for a living, will not have those stress and worries. So it's great to bring that to life as well. So thank you for your time today. I'm sure that, like I said, the viewers will really enjoy it, and I look forward to maybe getting you on another podcast soon.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. It's been a lot of fun speaking to you. Thank you for the invitation to be on the podcast.